Hello, Joe. Welcome to this week's diary entry. We caught up with you last week and you had just arrived back from Bangkok, and I think little frazzled would be a fair reflection, but also um, deep in trying to settle your family, having made some big decisions about your living arrangements in Bangkok, but also what does that mean on whether you're going back there again and keeping your kids on the journey with you. I feel like things are moving at a fast pace for you. How have things been over the last week?
It is sort of, actually, do you know what's been, I was only reflecting on this morning. I feel like things have actually slowed down this week. And then I realized that, like we're doing this again. So it's already been a week. So it like feels slower during it. But then I'm like, the days are still flying. And I'm like, oh, it's 5 p.m. already. Every day is very, very quick. So, some things that have happened has been I did make the call and have decided not to go back again with the kids and haven't sort of mentioned it since, and everyone seems to have forgotten about it. So that's been a win, which is good. We have had just a interesting week as far as just again, it's so fascinating doing this again and thinking about this with two hats on. One being the accompanying partner doing the things. And we talked about earlier on that I had been quite vocal about saying, I'm the point of contact, me, send the things to me. Not really finding that that's happening, because even though everything is being supposedly outsourced to a company, there's some things that they're keeping internally, and obviously they will then only talk to the staff member to do. So it hasn't actually been like the communications have not been the smoothest as far as things. And then my husband's like, did you reply to that email? And I'm like, yeah, I did. But then they just sort of ignore me every time I do. And it sort of sometimes there's been some actually just confirming Hugh back to him. And I'm like, so that's been a little interesting, but also I just don't really care. Like, as long as the things that are happening, I'm just like, ugh, whatever. I can't be bothered getting my stuff in a tiz for that. So that's been fine. We have we saw the passports last week, so the kids' passports have arrived. We have got, again, I was given the choice, slash not really the choice, but from the packing company who is being managed by the relocation. So another like third or fourth party or whatever you would call, who will be actually coming on packing day and sort of packing the house up and all of those sorts of things, want to do an assessment, like a walkthrough of the house to see what we're taking and those things. And then they were like, yes, and we'll book in a time for someone to come and walk around. And then someone's obviously looked at a map and was like, so it's just as effective for us to do this as a virtual tour on like your phone walking around. I was like, okay, yep. So that's hopefully booked in, but that's been 3 emails in itself, even just to be like confirming that
Yeah.
you're going to have this assessment. Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be online? We've established it's going to be online. God knows what time zone these people are working in. I would hope they're Australians. I think they are, as far as like that it's them that are going to be sending a truck to come and pick up all of our stuff. But anyway, I've asked them if we can do that early next week. So that will have been done when we catch up next.
Excellent.
But other than that, there hasn't been a huge amount. We've had 3 people do inspections on the house and 2 people took contracts.
That's exciting.
So
So a
fingers
lot of
crossed.
a lot of admin happening behind the scenes to keep things moving.
Yeah, and just even like annoying things like my husband took one of the 2 cars that we're trying to sell into town, cleaned it all, and then took photos of it and put them on like, Facebook Marketplace and some local car sales things, and did all of that from town so that he then didn't drive on the dirt road and make the car filthy again. So the car's filthy again
Oh goodness.
as far as selling it. So that's less exciting because the only people that have reached out to us about buying the car are like dealers wanting to do like buy it back into a dealership and like pay you half of what the car's worth. So we'll see. At least we know that there's some like fire sale options if we've still got the cars like 2 days before we leave. We'll just be like, okay, take the hit and a dealer can sell it. So that's not so bad. But yeah, just like those little fiddly things.
Yeah. And is Hugh still away?
No, he's back now. So no, he's here. Um, but he's also feeling a bit of a loose end. He's like, I know there's lots of like stuff to do, but it's none of it's really stuff that you can do with unless it's like physically moving all of the stuff out or things. And so I've been giving him little jobs like, I bought all these vacuum pack bags. I said, go and put all your winter clothes in there. You're not going to need them for the next however long. They can definitely go on the boat. You're not going to need them when we arrive. So go and start just bagging things up. So there's just little things like that. And I feel like that we're just chipping away at little things, which is really good because I know that that's going to be so helpful when we get to actual packing week. We did 3 trips to my brother-in-law's farm last weekend, pretty much emptying the shed of all like machinery and tools and fencing gear and all sorts of all this other stuff. So that was good. That was like 3 trucks and trailer loads worth of stuff that is no longer in the shed as well, which is good.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
I think it's
just
hard when you've got that deadline fast approaching, but also there's actually not a lot you can do to speed things along. Like you've got these big milestones that you're waiting for, like selling the house and the shipment of your things. And yes, you can sort of tinker away around the edges, but they're the things that are going to make the real difference in terms of actually moving you, and also I think mentally preparing you as well. So how are you feeling? Like how's your headspace this week?
how am I feeling? How am I feeling? I am feeling, I guess, like a bit re-energized, really, because again, I'm trying to lean into the fact that there's like a whole lot of things that I can't actually do anything about. So, okay, just let them sort of keep poking along. I've been reading. Started reading my first non-fiction book for the year.
That's
That
big for you.
it is the sort of lowbrow stuff that I've been reading this year in my downtime. It was probably, I can't remember if I told you about my girlfriend that had had a look at my Goodreads account and screenshotted the books that I'd been reading and sent me a text and was like, what have you been up to? Anyway, I'm reading a non-fiction book at the moment, which I can't remember what the name of the author is, but it's the Kiwi woman that was heading up sort of government relations at Facebook in the bad old days, well, whatever days of it, which was a bit of a whistleblower thing that, Facebook didn't want her like selling the book. And it's terrifying and fascinating at the same time. Like, so grim. It's so grim. And it's so grim. And I feel like it's interesting, just like, and this is a bit of a rabbit hole as far as just Facebook, but as a side note, I was on exchange at the University of Kentucky when I was 21. And Facebook had been going for maybe a year or two when I got to the States. And it was when I got there, you still had to be a college student in the US to have an account. You couldn't it wasn't sort of open to the world. And I can remember thinking like, oh my God, this is like something fundamentally different about this. And it's just really fascinating listening to her talk about that as well, that she was just like, she was so desperate to go and work for Facebook because she was thinking about like the politics and the geopolitics and the influence that something like this would be able to have when no one else was thinking about that in the company. So anyway, it was quite interesting being someone that was sort of an outsider in the college scene in the US
Yeah.
and sort of seeing that, oh, there's something big here. I could never have imagined what it had what has turned into. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's like super fascinating. So anyway,
Well,
rabbit
you
hole.
probably wouldn't have been here. You would have been there as a first investor in the Facebook
I'm sorry, I love you, but I wouldn't have been doing this. I'd be
I know
some
that.
beach somewhere drinking cocktails.
Or writing your book about everything that you saw.
Yeah, yeah, true, true, true.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. And
Mm,
I am going to do a plug for our book club, which is starting in March with also with a non-fiction book. So you and I are both big fiction readers, and in our book club, we've tried to make it a mix of fiction and non-fiction so that we're catering to all audiences and always with a growth mindset, Joe, we are stretching ourselves into non-fiction. So love to hear that you're doing that in your personal time as well. Um, so if you are listening to this and you're not a member, you should definitely sign up because we've got so many amazing things on our platform, including our book club, which is just a fun addition and goes into the themes that we tackle here at Alora. So our first one is about the issue that you're facing right now, which is whose career, yours, mine, or ours. It's a really fascinating read.
mm,
I know my copy, I dog-eared about 10 pages and refer back to it, but you're sort of living that experience in real time of, yes, your career is continuing alongside, but your partner's career is taking precedence in
mm.
moving. I'm I'm wondering if I don't know. We'll obviously dive into it in the book club, but if you've had any reflections on that during this time.
I have actually had another thing that has been taking up my time and my money this week, which has been where does our dog go? And again, that seems like a bit of a random one. And I know when some people relocate, they just take their pets with them. My husband and two children were both very keen on taking our miniature sausage dog to an apartment in Bangkok. And I said, this is my one hill I will die on. I am not taking a dog from a farm to an apartment when I'm the one that's going to be at home picking up the mess. I don't do dog poo, and I know that role will fall on me. And so I said, it's a hard no. We are not taking the dog.
Good on you.
Lots of tears, lots of tears. But that's another whole thing is finding someone to take a dog. I just assumed my in-laws would take him, and my mother-in-law was like, yes, absolutely. And my father-in-law was like, no, that dog we've got is nearly dead. And then once it is, we're going to have freedom to go like traveling and doing things that don't bring us back because we have this dog here. And he's like, your dog's only 6 years old. No, because we're going to have to look after it for however many more years. And so we were like, oh, okay. And so that's been a bit of a journey, is then now finding what happened with the dog. So the last time we left, we didn't take the dog to Singapore. And so my best friend looked after the dog. And she said, no, I'm not taking him this time because if you come back in 2 years, I can't bear. She loved him so much. She's like, I can't bear giving him up again. It's like giving a child
Oh,
up. And I was like, again, I'm not really a dog person. So I was like, oh, that's weird. But anyway, she was like, no, I can't handle the separation again. I was like, okay. But she then mentioned it to her parents, who also love him, and were like, we'll take him. And
oh
so we
my
found a
goodness.
home.
You see, I thought
So,
we were going to have to do like a trigger warning on this episode
nah.
for dog lovers, but this has been a happy ending. I'm glad to hear this.
Well, it's been a happy ending for him. Not so happy ending this week for my wallet and bank balance. So I thought, oh, I can't ship this dog off to my friend's parents. And that he, you know, is like, something's wrong with him or they're going to get like a $5,000 surgery bill within 6 months of getting him. And so one of my girlfriends is our vet in town. And so I took him in there today and gave him a once over and checks. And she said, how long since you've been in here? And I was like, he hasn't been, I don't even know when he's, but like, again, sorry if you're a pet lover that is like horrified with my blasé attitude towards my pet. I'm looking over because he's literally still in town and sitting in my office with me today. But so I paid for all of that and 12 months worth of worming tablets and all these other bits and pieces. And then my friend was like, so he's pretty much due for like some dental things. And I was like, what? And she's like, I said, oh yeah, okay, cool. We'll make sure that like his teeth, just assuming she would swing him in somewhere and do it. She's like, no, no, so you'll need to book him in and we put them under and things. And I was like, what? And she's like, oh, let me just see how much it's going to cost you. She's like, $980. I was like, it's like that dog cost $500. I was like, I have to spend $980 on his teeth. I was like, okay, sort of like got guilted into booking him in. And I rang my husband from the car park and he was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I then had to like ring my friend and say, can you cancel that appointment? We're not doing the teeth stuff.
So are we going to get an update in the future of like your poor friend's parents dealing with like teeth cavities and
No,
extraction?
they're going to be like injecting food intravenous or with a syringe into his
Gosh.
mouth because he has no teeth.
It is really one of those things you have to think about though, the pet piece. We brought our cat to Singapore and my husband had the same view as you that it was ridiculous. I think it's a little different with a cat bringing it into an apartment life. But I think we are very happy we've done it, and our girls love him. But I say terrible things to them because, we plan to move back to Australia at some point, and they're like, "Will he come?" And I'm like, "If he's still alive," which is probably not the best thing to say to children. So I'm traumatizing in my own way. So I think this is the role of pets in families. Everyone has a pet-related family trauma.
Well, I think this is also the joys of like handballing him to another farming family. So they live like another 3 hours west of us. And I said, oh, like I don't want you to get lumped with a bunch of vet bills or things. He's getting older. And I said, maybe should we pay for like pet insurance? And my friend's mum was like, absolutely not. I've got the same attitude. That dog, she's like, there's a threshold on what I'll pay, and then I'll ring you if I'm not paying it.
Amazing.
After the decision is already made, I was like, okay, great. Don't
Definitely
ring
worth
us for decisions. I don't want to be making decisions. He will be your dog. I'm not planning on taking him back. I'm hoping that our time away, again, like you said, because the kids were like, will we get him back? And I was like, let's see.
Oh gosh, I feel like this episode could get us cancelled by
Probably.
people.
Well, whatever length of time my dog spends with my best mate's parents is going to be the best. They're retired, they live on a farm, they also have a beach house that they float between. So that dog is going to be running in fields of things and then running on beaches, is going to be living best life
Amazing.
with bad teeth and breath, but whatever.
Not to worry. Oh gosh. And that is a happy ending despite your bank balance, but a little less spending than you thought, which is a good
Yeah,
result.
which is a good result, I know. And again, that's just an interesting sort of thing to note. We're spending just so much money on
Mm.
stuff. Like, I don't even know what, but I feel like I'm constantly just like hemorrhaging money on finishing things up. Like, one of the things that we had to do was, I think I mentioned this, get our pool accredited to sell the house and to tick off all of the things. It's just money, like just, and it's
Yeah.
like, I think people do this every time you go to sell a house and you fix all the things that you've been staring at. And I'm like, I'm fixing things for someone else. Why didn't we do this years ago so
Yeah.
that we got to enjoy like the finished things? And so
Yeah.
just, I think just making a note of that, it's a really expensive time.
And I remember when we landed in Singapore, all the expenses on arrival as well. So it will be interesting what your experience is when you get to Bangkok. But certainly for us, we hadn't been able to get Singapore bank accounts set up, but you required that for some of the things that we needed in setting up apartments. So we were having to borrow money off friends in Singapore, which we were lucky to have, which is sort of a crazy situation to be in when you're often making these moves because it makes financial sense, and then to be in that position. So it will be interesting to see how that flows through in Bangkok as
Mm.
well. Hopefully,
Well,
hopefully not continued for the long
well,
term.
yeah, I think like yes, that when we arrived, but already like I've had to put deposits down at school, a deposit down on the apartment, like all of these things, and you're transferring Australian dollars over into Thai baht to pay things, and like those are little small fry things in the scheme of things, but you're paying a transaction like thing every time as well.
Yeah.
I know there will be similar things as well as far as those, having a Thai bank account and all of those things that go with that. But yeah, it's an expensive time. Getting your
Yeah.
dog's teeth cleaned.
And I think it's also little things which can feel frustrating. I know when people are moving, like it's the timing is not always your decision. So you might have already paid a full term of school fees and you just have to deal with that. And that, again, it's small in the long term, but at the time it's just another thing sort of adding to this accumulation that you're carrying around.
Well, there's also things that I'm absolutely refusing to spend money on, which I'm feeling guilty about. Only one of those things, which is my 12-year-old has totally outgrown her school shoes, but we're about to go to a school where they can wear like trainers or a pair of cons or whatever. And here they have to wear like proper leather school shoes. And I was like, I'm not buying, I'm not buying you new school shoes for 5 weeks. Sorry. And so she's coming home with like her feet sort of jammed into the. And I'm sort of like, oh, do I just let her wear her runners or her trainers to school? But anyway, I feel like if we're getting a little bit closer to the end of term, I'll be just like, who cares? Do what you want. But I
Like
feel
she's
she's still.
hobbling around.
I know. So again, should I just buy the shoes because I'm going to have to pay for like, a podiatrist because I've stunted her growth because her toes are curled under in her school shoes.
Oh gosh.
So had lunch today with a girlfriend of mine who is I guess an accompanying partner of the medical industry as far as her husband's career sort of taking precedence on their physical location domestically in Australia. And she sort of made this comment, which I can completely relate to. She said, I kind of feel a bit like, you know, she's a lawyer, so she's got like a very interesting, good, well-paid career and things, and she's pretty flex, so it's not going to impact her career-wise as much, this move. But this concept where she said, I'm not actually all that fussed on my career at the moment. They've got 3 small kids. She's like, you know, the career thing has sort of taken a bit of a backseat at the moment. And she said, I feel kind of, I guess, a bit like an anti-feminist as far as not being like, foot stamping around the thing. She said, I'm kind of just leaning into it at the moment. I'm kind of happy just to be coming along for the ride and keeping everything sort of sticking together. And she said, I just am conscious that I need to make sure that this doesn't become life. And so that concept with Yvonne's book of being yours, mine, ours, is that she goes into such, well, I don't want to spoiler alert, but like the concept of that it can be something that you take turns with, and that it can be something that's, okay, well, it's not me right now, and it can be me later, or things, and it's all around the discussions and stuff about that as well.
Yeah.
So yes, I have been pondering it literally today, and my attitude has been, and she said, this is why I wanted to, sort of talk to you because you're in the thick of it at the moment. And I was like, I always, and we've sort of heard it, I'm going for that cup half full attitude towards this. But at other times, I'm sort of just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't actually really know how to answer how I'm feeling about it today. But I just think it is interesting, that concept of not my career right now piece.
Yeah.
It's
And
an interesting ponder.
I think it is. And also the how do you make sure that that doesn't become the norm? So what your friend is experiencing of, you know what, I'm happy to just like settle into this right now and take a back seat for
Mm,
now. And I think a lot of women in particular do that with child rearing days. The family does seem to take precedence, and it is predominantly women that take on that role. But it's exacerbated with a move, and often where you don't have the same networks and ability to step back into the workplace. And so how do you stay motivated and engaged and re-enter when you are able to, even if it feels like, you know what, this is the right thing for me to be doing right now, stepping back. I think one of the big things that Yvonne does talk about is that communication piece and having that
mm.
ongoing conversation with your partner, and the taking of turns if you can.
Don't speak too much about this. Let's not spoiler alert this.
Sorry.
I guess my spoiler alert is that with the book club piece, it doesn't matter if you're not, like, you can also, as we sort of move through the books over each year with this, it doesn't, you can actually retrospectively go back and still engage. How we're setting up the book club in Alora is that you actually can engage post that quarter when we're actually reading the book, and the chat continues, and you can still ponder and engage with other people that have read the book or that are coming in past the date of a session as well. So I'm super excited. Again, we've just totally hijacked my diary talking about
Sorry.
books. So Exhibit A.
Example of us loving reading in our spare time.
On that note,
On that note, um, well, it's actually really lovely to hear you feeling a little more relaxed this week, despite all these things that are going on around you, and that you've been able to find space to feel re energized as well. I think, finding time to do those things that we really love is so important, especially in the chaos of a move like this. So I I love seeing that, and I hope you can retain a little bit of that, because I'm sure it'll ramp up again. But just thinking about those things that allow you to feel re-energized and grabbing onto them, I would very much encourage you to do that.
well, and I'm beginning to think, like, we were just talking out loud about my reading choice. Maybe I should not be reading something so heavy and heavy
Yeah,
going. I need to
that could be a
lighten that.
start.
I'll report back on my change of direction, which I feel like I might actually, now that I've vocalized that, change gears with my book. Anyway, I will report back.
We look forward to hearing. Thank you so much, Joe.
See ya.
See ya.